I would like to begin by thanking the Swiss Embassy for helping to sponsor this luncheon today. We have a large Swiss delegation with us. It includes Ambassador Manuel Sager and Swiss State Secretary of Foreign Affairs Peter Major. Our sponsors, our other sponsors who we deeply appreciate, George Salem and the CCC Group, the Foundation for Middle East Peace, headed by Ambassador Philip Wilcox, and my dear friend Fuad Sahuri. The Geneva Accord was signed 8 years ago by many prominent Israelis and Palestinians, including, of course, the featured speakers here today, Dr. Yossi Beilin and Sami El-Abed. It stands as one of the more successful efforts to chart a path to resolve the vexing problems of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. You know, if the devil's in the details, well, almost all of those details were worked out in meticulous in 500 pages of the Geneva Accord, including its annexes. Borders, land swipes, refugees, Jerusalem, security, water. Look, all of the very most difficult issues were discussed at length. Compromises were made in this Track 2 effort in Geneva, and in my opinion, it was an excellent blueprint for how to move forward. Regrettably, conditions are very different now than they were 8 years ago, and just getting the parties in direct talks at the table appears to be very difficult. But we are honored here today to have Peter Maurer, the Swiss State Secretary for Foreign Affairs, to introduce our speakers. State Secretary Maurer now directs the activities of the Swiss Diplomatic Service in Bern headquarters, and which covers approximately 150 missions around the world, including in Iran, where the Swiss diplomats represent American interests. This is an important diplomatic position, and but I'd like to also, if you don't already know it, to inform you that he has been nominated and in July will assume the presidency of the international community's most effective and respected organizations, the International Commission for the Red Cross. So we are deeply honored to have you here today, and would ask you to join us to introduce our
Thanks, Wendy. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, particularly from the State Department, who are here just before going overseas. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today two persons who have defied their proper societies by hammering out a message of peace in an environment of hostility and mistrust. They have challenged the idea that peace can be won by the defeat of one party over the other. They and their colleagues in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories have worked to overcome the unrealistic idea that the land of historic Palestine or of historic Israel belongs to one party only and not to the other. They have done so by imagining a concrete solution together with many partners in the Israeli and Palestinian civil societies. The result of their endeavor has been the signature of the Geneva Model Accord almost 8 years ago on 1st of December 2003. My country has been supporting their work since its beginnings. The Model Accord showed that in spite of the breakdowns of the official negotiations between the parties in Camp David and Taba, there is a way to go forward. It took them about 7 years and a half to produce all the annexes to the accord, which detailed the nitty-gritty of the implementation of the agreement. All these ideas are today available on the internet or in a book with several hundred pages. However, their work is not finished. The Geneva Initiative is not only about producing a text, it's about reaching out to those sectors who have yet to be convinced that there needs to be an agreement and that the alternative means more violence, more violations of international law, of human rights, and finally, more victims. Dr. Yossi Beilin has held several ministerial positions in the Israeli governments headed by Isaac Rabin, Shimon Peres, and Ehud Barak, including a Minister of Justice from 1999 and 2001. He had also been a member of the Knesset until his resignation in 2008. Furthermore, he also was the head of the Meretz party. He has devoted much of his life to the settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and took a leading part in the Oslo Accords. He is the co-architect of the Geneva Accord. Dr. Sami Al-Abed was the Palestinian Authority's Minister of Public Works and Housing in the Unity Government of 2007. He has been strongly engaged in the development of housing, jobs, and investments in the occupied Palestinian territory for 3 decades. And he is here today since he has been part of the peace negotiations in Camp David, Taba, and Annapolis, and because he is the deputy chairman of the Palestinian Peace Coalition, the Geneva Initiative's Palestinian office. As such, he has supervised the finalization of all the annexes of the accord. And both of them will be ably moderated by David Miller afterwards in the discussions. You need to be ahead of time to develop visions of peace in the context of a conflict. And you need personal courage to defend the vision, which can break the cycle of violence and reminds the people that there is no solution without cooperation and engagement. Both speakers have these qualities. Ladies and gentlemen, we have all witnessed that North Africa and West Asia are moving. The peoples in the region have shown that they are able to relinquish their fear of oppressive regimes and to stand up for defending their rights and their dignity. But changes of leadership are not enough to secure a sustainable improvement of the situation. The region faces important economic, social, environmental challenges. These challenges transcend boundaries. They can't be tackled on a national level and therefore present a unique opportunity to foster regional cooperation. A major element on this path is the resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as part of a comprehensive regional peace. This conflict stands in the way of the vision of freedom, dignity, and cooperation throughout the region. With the emergence of democratic structures in the Arab world, there is no future for cold peace imposed by authoritarian rules. A sustainable peace requires cooperation in matters of common interest, commercial and cultural exchange, and mutual respect. In other words, sustainable peace needs to be carried by the civil society as much as by governments. The Arab revolts and revolutions do have the potential to be a game changer also for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But there is a price to be paid for peace. This price is the recognition of the fundamental rights and needs of the others. Aspirations which hinder the realization of peace are dangerous. Everybody is entitled to have dreams, but these dreams should not destroy those of the next generations. This is where responsible political leadership comes in, without which no progress is possible. If I look at the Israeli and Palestinian polls that are regularly published on both sides, they consistently show that people want peace on the basis of 2 states for 2 peoples, but they don't think it is possible. I like to think that the Geneva Initiative has had an influence on the first part of the polls. The 2-state idea has gained ground. The troubling part is the second part of the polls. The second part represents the fear that the respective other side is not ready to share the land and to live peacefully in 2 distinct states, to draw a line for borders and to respect it. These fears are not unsubstantiated. Rockets, incendiary speeches, the creation of facts on the ground by building settlements, arbitrary arrests, and house demolitions are all elements which make those fears understandable and show the dreams which are not compatible with peace continue to shape realities. This is where initiatives like the Geneva Accord are important. They allow visualizing realistic options which take into account the aspirations of both sides. They show where precisely the borders between 2 sovereign states could lie, how Jerusalem could look like as a capital of both states, how its old city can remain without physical division, how the security needs on both sides can be concretely met, how a permanent settlement of the Palestinian refugees can be envisaged, how the water resources can be treated in a just and fair manner, how Gaza and the West Bank can be connected, and how cooperation in economy and infrastructure can be shaped in a way profitable for both parts. It's not a magic solution, but it's an invitation to start imagining a better future. Whether one likes the label of the Geneva Initiative or not, the amount of concrete ideas detailed in the annexes is invaluable. It needs political will to make use of those proposals. It needs internal conversations with the societies to show that solutions are possible. And it needs the international community both to encourage the parties to do the decisive steps and to ensure that the obligations incurred are met. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, let me just make the following remarks. There are many cynical jokes amongst diplomats who deal with the Middle East or other conflict regions like the Caucasus and the Balkans, and those jokes reflect the hopelessness and helplessness of those who are frustrated about the lack of progress. I have personally been involved in one of those seemingly hopeless negotiations between Russia and Georgia on Russian accession to WTO, and which Switzerland has mediated over the past 12 months. We were desperate many times, but at the end we came to a compromise and a conclusion because both parties and their political leaders transcended ideology and showed responsibility, because of the parties moved from principles to pragmatism, because the international community and the United States first and foremost worked on both sides even-handedly to nudge them into compromise, because the international community was unified in its will to see progress at the end of the year. One may say that this was much easier than the Middle East. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe also success in one region carries a lesson for another region. We certainly hope that inspiration moves from one difficult conflict to the other. I wanted to thank you and invite the two speakers and the moderator now to the podium to give us the more interesting insight into their present analysis of the conflict and possible solution. I thank you.